backtracking a bit, in 70, I think it was 1971, I was drafted. I was living in Washington, D.C., the national cap. And here I was, I got draft notice. And so I wrote Srila Prabhupada, I said, what should I do? He said, I'll write you a letter. So he wrote this letter. The key line was, my disciples do not have time to squander in these activities. Anyways, I presented that paper. And luckily, my draft board was San Francisco. I had to register in San Francisco. So I guess, anyways, it worked. Srila Prabhupada's letter worked.
So I had a copy of Chaitanya Charitamrita where there is a picture of Prabhupada holding a champak flower like this with a lot of sandalwood paste, the flower garland, and he's holding the flower and he's looking like this. So that was the only book I had where I could show him, some work of ISKCON. Other Bhagavatam volumes have been sold and we have to get back to Bangalore. So I brought that book with me and I went to meet him because he's the chief of the 3000. So I went and showed him some things about ISKCON and then showed him this picture. Said, this is our Guru Maharaj, he has translated these books. So he looked at that picture for a while. And he brought some things from his little box, some thread and some things like that, and he was measuring Prabhupada's forehead and his ears and things like that. It took about 10-15 minutes and then he shook his head. Then he said that all the 4 Vaishnavacharyas, he said, in one person. So then he looked at me and he said, you know that we are Shaivites and because we are not impressionless, so we have nothing opposite to Vaishnava Sampradaya. But we are worshippers of Shiva. So we do bhakti to Shiva in person. And he said, these Vaishnava Sampradayas, all the 4 acharyas, if they come in one body, that is how this person's features are. And he said, I'm an expert in Samudrika Lakshana Shastra. I can see from here. I wish you have showed me a full picture. So then I had a picture that I was worshipping. So I took that picture out and I showed him. Then he again went on and he has his lens. And he did another study. Then he said that I was not wrong. He said, they are all working through this person. Then he said, you are very fortunate to be with him. Then he said that some movement like that, this is what I would like to be in my next life. So then I said, but I thought your ultimate is go to Kailash. Then he said, yes, if I go there, and Kailash exists for a long time, so I can always tell Lord Shiva that I want to join some movement like this, and I want to spread dharma everywhere. Then he was very happy and he said that, you please give this book to me. I want to keep this. Because this has given me the highest experience of studying a person's feature. So I want to keep this book with me. So I gave it to him as complimentary copy.
Prabhupada had been just, how he would sometimes speak on kind of things dealing with how the way people are in the world, the way the world works and so forth, from a Krishna conscious perspective. So he was doing that and somehow I was giving very good responses to those observations. Like he would say something and then I would come up with an observation that he liked. I mean, it was apparently he liked it. He would smile. Like for example, he had these little glass for eyeglasses, little tissues that you clean with. He'd pull one out and he was saying something like, these things they cost them nothing to manufacture and they sell them for 3 rupees or something. And I would said something to the effect like, yes, Prabhupada, that's the profit motive of the karmis. He goes, yes, So it was kind of like that. It went on a few times like that. And I started to get a little sense of myself as really, like right there with Prabhupada, having these exchanges. It was subtle, but somehow my ego was, swelling up a little bit inside me. And so then I asked him something about Iran, because there was some question with the Treya Rishi and going there. And so I brought it up, and it's like Prabhupada looked at me, and it's like, by then I think it was, he kind of had enough. He looked at me, It was like he just kind of looked away, you know. And to this day, I don't know what was going on, you know, whether he was just thinking of something else. But to me, it felt like he was saying, okay, you know, we're going to squeeze you down the sides. And he looked away, and I felt really, really bad, you know, like, well, yeah, I was getting full of myself, and, you know, I'm so conditioned, you know. And so I felt bad, even on into the night, I really did, you know. Because in Mayapur, you know, it's such an atmosphere, everything is amplified. So the next morning, we were having the Guru Puja, and Prabhupada would circumambulate the temple room, you know, inside. Go around, he would stop and ring a bell at different spots. The devotees would get real ecstatic, you know, how it was all around him, chanting, and he'd ring the bell in time with the kirtan. So he started to do that, and we just made the first stop. And I was chanting, I was feeling very blissful, but I still had that little thing in my heart of, you know, I was such a klutz, you know. And just as I was kind of thinking that and feeling kind of the dichotomy between the bliss of the kirtan and that little pebble in my shoe, Prabhupada turned and looked right at me as he was ringing the bell. And he just looked at me for like, I don't know how long, but a long time, and just smiling, just radiating bliss, you know. And I just, you know, it kind of just washed over me, and it was like, don't take it too seriously. I was just cuffing you a little bit, you know.
I remember at that lecture that night, someone dressed as people did back then, almost like in the hippie era, long robes with moons and stars and long hair, very carefully arranged, came in and sat erect during the entire lecture, and then stared, glaring almost at Srila Prabhupada, said, what about Buddha? And so Srila Prabhupada said, what about Buddha? He just stared him right back. And he said, well, can you see God? And Srila Prabhupada said, no, you are in the way. So the funny thing is that whoever it was smiled after that and was not in the least bit annoyed and stayed around afterwards.